So The Roses was directed by Jay Roach and it stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Colman, Andy Samberg, Kate McKinnon, and Allison Janney. In this movie, Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman play a couple known as the Roses. They have a very nice, loving marriage until things happen in their lives. They begin to separate, they decide to divorce, and things escalate pretty quickly, to say the least. So this is a movie that I was kind of looking forward to ever since I saw the trailer back a few months ago. It's like, oh, this looked like it could be pretty fun. This looked like it could be pretty cool and such. I am aware that this is a remake of The War of the Roses, directed by Danny DeVito, starring him and Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner and such. Now, this may sound sacrilegious, but I have not seen that movie. I wanted to before watching this movie, so I kind of have like some frame of reference going into this movie, but unfortunately, a couple things happened. Didn't have the time. Also discovered that it's not on any streaming service, unfortunately, so yeah, that was kind of annoying. But I still wanted to check this movie out to see if it was like actually funny, if it's actually a good time. I love dark comedies every once in a while, and it seems like now we are getting a lot of comedies in theaters. I mentioned Naked Gun, Freakier Friday. We are getting some comedies in theaters again, and I'm actually really glad about that. So I was hoping that The Roses would continue this trend. And unfortunately, I did not find this movie to be very funny. I found this movie to have a strong start, a very bland middle, and then just an annoying, maybe not annoying, but more disappointing ending. So I'll start off with the things I do like. First off, the acting is pretty good, particularly from the two leads, Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman. At times, they are believable as a couple. No one in this movie gives a bad performance, but I also feel like there are times when the movie just kind of like goes to the supporting cast and says, hey, do whatever you want for like a couple seconds and just try what you can. The only one that kind of really stood out, in my opinion, was one between Andy Samberg and Allison Janney. That's about it. But you also kind of see in the trailer, so it's also kind of disappointing. And admittedly, there are some very funny moments. I would say in the first third of this movie is probably the funniest. And it just becomes not so funny in the second act, a little bit funny again in the third act. But it's just such a roller coaster that's like, okay, so at least parts of the movie are funny, but it's not consistently funny. Like at least something like Naked Gun, I was laughing constantly throughout the entire movie. And I would say this movie actually does make me want to go back and watch the original. Again, it may sound sacrilegious that I haven't seen the original movie, but I do want to see that movie now that I have seen this original movie and been like, okay, this movie wasn't necessarily that great. I would go back and see what made that first movie great to begin with. So any movie that can do that, but then again, I would say that any remake these days kind of makes me want to do that. That's at least something, right? Well, okay, so let's move on to the things I don't like about this movie. The first thing I kind of got from this movie is that I already had this feeling that the two leads kind of hated each other. And not the sense that like, oh, by the end they were like so mad at each other and such. No, I felt like when they were falling in love, there was always just some sort of anger towards each other. I'm like, I feel like for this movie to work, they need to really be in love, and I shouldn't feel like they're already mad at each other, and I feel like this is just kind of odd. Like, as the movie kind of progressively goes on, it's like, oh, it's kind of like, microaggressions that kind of make them angrier and such with each other, and it works about half the time, but it doesn't feel quite fully fleshed out at times. So, also, what I don't really like about this movie is that, again, this movie is not incredibly funny. Like, the first third, probably the funniest. Couple laughs in the third, and then about nothing in the second act. I felt like it just kind of didn't know what it really wanted to be at times. Like, does it want to be a dark comedy? Does it want to be a serious movie? And even so, the comedy itself just falls kind of flat. People like Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman have proven themselves to be incredibly funny, but I found a lot of the humor in this movie to be kind of dry. Even and dry, like, not dry like dry humor and such, but I mean, like, very bland and very forgettable humor. I kind of forgot the jokes, and I just saw it like a day or so ago. It was just kind of forgettable, in my opinion. And also, I will say, you have seen most of the stuff in the trailer. Like, a lot of stuff between the two of them, you do see in the trailer. And a lot of the stuff that happens in the last 20 minutes is basically all the escalating between, two leads. And I felt like that was just kind of disappointing. It's like, okay, we're sitting through this movie that is about an hour and a half or so, but then only in the last 20 minutes, that's like when you kind of see most of the stuff, like a lot of the, like someone has a gun at one point, they're throwing stuff, pepper sprays during at one point, and it's very disappointing that most of the stuff is in the last 20 minutes. I'm like, huh. I feel like this movie would have been better if they kind of like built on that a little bit more and kind of just instead of just throwing it all at once, they just kind of built that up as well instead of just saying, oh yeah, we gotta throw all that stuff in this movie too. And also, I would say this movie, even though it's a dark comedy, it is not dark and mean enough. Like, this movie has like one kind of awful sequence, but by that point, you're kind of already hating these characters. So it does kind of make sense why they would do this, and they do allude to it pretty early on. But other than that, it's not mean enough. Like, I felt like this is kind of like what nice people think mean is, and it just doesn't quite work out that way. Again, I do want to check out the original War of the Roses just to see, like, how that movie was, how mean that movie was, how funny that movie was, because even though I haven't seen it, I can already tell that movie may actually be better than this one. Like, I'm just amazed. It's not an awful movie by any means, but I'm just watching this movie and I'm like, the talent involved is there, and the source material is there, and your idea is there, and yet nothing about this movie works out in the end, and I just felt exhausted by the end. It's just kind of a waste of time. So Roses, even though there are some good performances, and even though there are some funny lines, and admittedly it makes me want to go back and watch the original movie, I felt like it wasn't mean enough, it wasn't funny enough, it had characters who kind of already hated each other even when they're supposed to be in love, and also a lot of stuff you kind of already seen in the trailers, like Allison Janney's one scene in the entire movie is the one you've seen in the trailer, and also a lot of the fighting between Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch, you kind of saw that in the trailer already. It's just kind of a letdown. I'll give The Roses 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, what is your favorite and or least favorite remake? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.